Today, everyone is concerned about climate change. Large climate conferences are being held where leaders of countries, scientists, and representatives of corporations are looking for solutions together. It seems that the problem is about to be permanently solved. We will all tighten our belts and switch to renewable sources. We are assured that if the chimneys of thermal power plants stop smoking, all nuclear power plants are closed, and they build solar, wind, and hydroelectric power plants everywhere on the planet, then by 2050, we will have carbon-free energy production. This will supposedly save the world, preserve the environment, and everyone will be happy. Therefore, it is suggested that all the best minds and resources of humanity devote themselves to the development of green technologies. But what are we missing? Will it really save us? Aren't we losing the most valuable things in all of this? Time and opportunities. A more in-depth study of the subject reveals obvious facts that point to a major planetary fraud. So let us figure it out together, one step at a time. Today, renewable sources make up about 28% of total energy. Yet in order to produce them, we still use non-renewable natural resources. All this continues to contribute to the depletion and pollution of the planet. Solar panels, for example, contain such heavy metals as lead, cadmium, and mercury. During operation, they leach into the ground and evaporate into the atmosphere. Waste from solar panels is 300 times more toxic than nuclear waste and requires special disposal. But since it costs more than production, they decided not to bother with it and send the used panels to landfills in poor countries. So far, not a single country in the world today has regulations for their disposal. According to scientists' studies, by 2030, there will be up to 8 million tons of green waste in the world, and by 2050, these volumes will increase to 80 million tons. Let us imagine how these numbers would increase if we completely switch to these sources. Is this calculated in the reports? And is this topic explored that deeply at the conferences? As you can see, this only makes the environmental situation worse. And this is just the tip of an iceberg that we have to look into deeper. So what's wrong with wind farms? Let's start with our wallets, out of which you and I will have to pay for these ambitious solutions. To build a wind farm requires an enormous investment of money and resources. At that, the average lifespan of a wind turbine is 20 years, and during this time, it manages to recoup only 78% of the money spent upon its construction and installation. We are not even talking about maintenance, which implies building special-purpose vessels, expensive utility high-rises, and constant replacement of blades. Just one wind turbine requires more than 500 tons of lubricants, which is comparable to 9 tank cars of railway trains, which, by the way, are also produced from non-renewable resources of the planet. Just think about it. The size of the blades can be as big as the length of a soccer field. And do you know what they are made of? That's right, of that very plastic that we continue to struggle with so unsuccessfully around the world. Because of their gigantic size and hazardous chemical composition, they can't be recycled. So the classic solution is that the blades are taken to landfills and covered with soil. After all that, do you still think wind power is environmentally friendly? Now let us take a look at the downside of hydropower. 65% of the world's major rivers are blocked by hydroelectric dams. At that, dam failures and breaches put lives at risk and the planet's ecology suffers. Hydroelectric power plants directly affect the bowels of the earth. Tons of water from reservoirs press against tectonic plates, causing man-made earthquakes. We keep being persuaded that alternative sources will improve the environment and solve the issue of climate change. Why? Where does such pushy advertising of green energy and show of concern for us come from? After all, it is not profitable for the states that are forced under pressure to subsidize these projects and buy this energy at 5 times the price of traditional energy. Germany is a prime example. By shutting down most nuclear power plants in favor of green energy, it has hit a dead end. On best productivity days, it generates only 17% of its electricity. So, today, it has to buy energy with huge amounts of taxpayer money from the same non-green nuclear power plants in neighboring countries. Tell me, isn't that absurd? There's also another important fact worth noting. Renewable energy depends on the sun and the wind. So it must either be used immediately or accumulated in batteries. Yet, electricity is a complicated and expensive commodity to store. Let us calculate how many batteries are needed to store electricity and use it during periods without wind or sun or during emergencies. Imagine, an average two-person family consumes about 235 kilowatts per month. Roughly 100 batteries of 2.4 kilowatts would be needed to cover one family's monthly electricity needs. Now let's recall that a battery is the conversion of electrical energy into chemical energy and back again. To create them, harmful chemicals are used that cannot be recycled. And in order to produce cobalt, child labor in underground mines in the Congo is used. All this is done to allow us to breathe supposedly clean air. To summarize, with such aggressive promotion of alternative energy sources, are we taking into account their low efficiency factor and impact on ecology? Do we fully understand the threat to humanity as a result of renunciation of hydrocarbons at a time of global climate change? Because of the manipulation of public opinion, states are forced to shut down industries that run on coal, oil, and gas. This leads to a crisis in the energy sector at a time when we desperately need it. It is becoming obvious that alternative energy sources are not only developed as a source of income for one and the same organizations and corporations, but most importantly, they are used as a tool to control the nation's energy industry. In the end, we are back to the same game of power and lust for profit instead of concern for people and saving their lives. But at the same time, many people see this as a hope and a way out of the climate situation. Considering all of the above, we should all answer the following questions together. Should we actively develop alternative energy if it has so many disadvantages? Is it beneficial for us as a humanity today? Or should we apply our efforts to a more effective solution? After all, today there are already technologies that are capable of using free energy. But in a consumerist format, this beautiful prospect becomes a problem. It would be impossible to sell this energy if it were available to everyone in unlimited quantities. So we come to a dead end, which would bring about collapse of the economic system, crisis, and wars. This is why we need the right step-by-step approach. First of all, to change the format, to build a creative society, a format that benefits absolutely everyone and will save the life of every person. Then we can easily implement this technology without any damage to our lives. But this is a decision we must all make together. So today, the future development of society is up to each individual, whether we will continue falling down into the abyss blown by windmills, or if we will unite and take the path of development.
As we have seen, green energy is not green at all. It harms the environment and has become just another industry that is being developed on our backs. And we pay high prices for something that will never meet our needs. Besides being an aesthetic injury to our green environments, wind power is not green because wind farms require enormous amounts of concrete and metal to construct, disturb wildlife, harm human health with noise pollution, kill hundreds of thousands of birds each year, pollute our air and water supply. And this might come as a surprise, but green energy also increases food prices because farmers are forced to produce biofuels instead of food. So, how did we start believing that all these alternative and so-called renewable energy sources are harmless? Once again, our attention was directed to one or two aspects in a narrow and limited way. The sun is shining, the wind is blowing, it's all free and green, so anything related is also green. Well, this situation reminds me of a magician asking the audience to look at one hand while pulling off the trick with the other. It's the same with green energy. We are focused on 2 or 3 aspects, missing out on hundreds more. We have to grow up and stop believing in miracles. And as grown-ups, we should also be able to comprehend that every technological solution has its downsides, which have to be carefully studied before we rush into implementing them on a global scale. We are told about green energy with great enthusiasm, but it looks like it is green only for someone's wallet. The fact is that the renewable sources of energy are much more polluting than ordinary fossil fuels and can supply us with energy in needed quantities, especially during unpredictable shifts in climatic conditions we've been and are about to experience in the future. Let's have a look at how we started blaming the CO2 by hearing from Valery Malinin, PhD in Geographical Sciences, professor at the Russian State Hydrometeorological University and a full member of the Russian Academy of Natural Sciences.